Good afternoon. It's Sunday, December 6th, 2020, coming to you live from the Lonely Tree Media Studios in partially frozen Yakima, Washington. This is the Best Lamm Sports Show. So I'm your host, David Lamm. With me, as always, is my son, Parker. Say hello, Parker.
How's it going?
We are live streaming on YouTube, and we are on Twitter at Lamm Sports, on Facebook under the Best Lamm Sports Show. You can send us an email, lammsports@gmail.com. And please check out our webpage, lammsports.com. You can find links to past shows. Current trivia question, as always, is on there. The first part of our show is brought to you by The Range in Yakima. The Range is Central Washington's premier indoor shooting facility at 34,000 square feet. The Range is an all-inclusive facility offering firearm training, retail firearm sales and supplies, full gunsmithing and repairs, custom builds, and Cerakote services, all under one roof. Open Tuesday through Sunday from 11 to 7. Go see our friends at The Range, 1701 Garrettson Lane in Yakima. The phone number is 509-571-1449. The Range, educate, equip, and empower. So, Parker, we got stuff to talk about. NFL and NCAA, kind of a streamlined show today because, we're coming back from the Thanksgiving hiatus.
That's right.
Which, in case nobody else was at the Thanksgiving hiatus, it was good, I think.
Yeah, not doing anything is always great.
Yeah, and it was a lot more fun to not do anything. I mean, to not have any responsibility, but, eat turkey. So that's always a plus. Yeah, I got my coronavirus tip up there on the screen for everybody so they can see coronavirus tip of the week. Just
funny.
keep yourself safe and wash your hands. Wear a Cowboys jersey. So we're talking about the NFL. We're going to cover why your team is not going to make the playoffs. We're going to say why the NFC East will produce a 6-10 division champion, and who will win the Tanking for Trevor sweepstakes. We're also going to cover the NCAA football, why the college football playoff rankings are a joke, in my opinion, why the Oregon Ducks can't win but are still in control of their own destiny, and what happens when Ohio State versus Michigan doesn't happen next weekend. But first, we're going to have some trivia, because nothing is more fun than having a trivia question. Trivia, right? Am I wrong?
I completely agree with you, yeah.
As always, brought to you by Stone Winery in Hood River. Go see them at one of their 2 tasting rooms, downtown at 210 Oak Street, or at the Vineyard, 3827 Fletcher Drive. Go to stavenstone.com and check out their gift baskets. For more information, call 541-946-3750. That's 541-WINE-750. Or email them at info@stavenstone.com. Stavenstone, wines with personality. So, trivia question is Heisman Trophy related. We're getting close to that. We're almost near the end of the college football season. And I figure let's do this. So, you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, the last 2 non-quarterbacks to win the Heisman Trophy were Derrick Henry in 2015 and Mark Ingram Jr. in 2009. They both played at Alabama. Who was the last player to win the Heisman Trophy that wasn't a quarterback and didn't play at Alabama?
I know the answer.
You know the answer? Okay, well, hold on to it. Let everybody else marinate on that for the next 45 minutes or so.
Sure.
And we'll see if anyone can come up with the answer to that. So the first thing we want to cover today is the NFL. It's going on right now. Current scores of games in progress. The Saints lead the Falcons 21-16 in Atlanta. Falcons have the ball. The Bears are trailing the Lions 34-30 in the fourth quarter with 26 seconds left. The Bears have the ball at the Detroit 24, but they got to get a touchdown. They're down 4. The Browns are thumping the Titans, and it was ugly. It was 38-7 at the half. It's 41-21 now. The Titans are making a little run at it, but there's too much. There's no time left. 2:53 to go in the fourth. They don't have time to make that comeback. The Dolphins are beating the Bengals after falling behind 7-0. They're ahead 19-7. That is early in the fourth quarter. The Vikings are beating the Jaguars barely. It's 24-16 in the fourth. Jaguars have the ball, and they're on the Minnesota 1 with 1:12 to go. So if they score and they go for 2, tie it up. We'll see what happens there. The Raiders are trying to hand the Jets their first win. They're trailing 28-24 in the fourth quarter with 1.5 minutes to go. And the Colts are winning at Houston 26-20 with 2 minutes to go in the fourth. Houston has the ball at the Indianapolis 30. Looks like there's going to be some good finishes to the early NFL games. today. Any
Ooh, I like to see tight games.
anything surprising you out there other than the Browns? Well, you didn't think the Browns Titans would be a surprise.
I didn't think so. No, I thought that they would be just fine in all this. Detroit, kind of working Cleveland, I thought was a little unusual, but I guess it shouldn't be because Detroit's always been able to score points. So, and if you can score points, you really don't have to worry about Chicago's offense. So that'd be kind of good. I would say that nothing is particularly surprising today. There are a couple upsets for sure, but nothing that I'm like, oh wow. I mean, the Jets are going to win that one game, that obligatory game that they do every year. This is probably just going to be, and unfortunately, it's going to come at the expense of the AFC West and the Raiders, who are trying to prove themselves as some sort of threat.
Right.
But I mean, are the Raiders about to be 6-6
And yeah, and
with
because
a loss to the Jets?
the Jets have the ball, 3rd and 6 on their own 13, but there's only a minute and a half to go, and they're leading by 4. So even they're Las Vegas took their last time out. There's a minute
Wow,
28 to go. So the Jets are going to run one more play and they're going to punt it, right?
John Gruden experiment's over.
And the Raiders are going to have now. It's not above the Jets to lose this in dramatic fashion either. Let's just say that. Um,
That's true. That's
a
true.
punt return for a touchdown or a blocked punt or something stupid or who knows what. But snap over the head of the punter goes into the end zone. Somebody recovers it. Something stupid. But all I'm saying is the Jets have this one if they don't make any mistakes right now. But who knows? So yeah, the Jets probably going to be 1-11, and if the Jaguars fall, and the Jaguars scored by the way, so it's 24-22 with a minute 8 to go. Jacksonville got the rushing touchdown, um, but now they got to go for 2, and so that play is upcoming to see if they can tie Minnesota. The Texans have moved down the field at breakneck speed, so they could take the lead on the Colts. There's a lot of good games. This is a lot of good finish. If you're watching NFL football, hopefully you got the sound turned down and you're listening to us. But there's a lot of good finishes about to happen. So the afternoon games, Rams Cardinals, who I think just kicked off, and I think that's going to be maybe the game of the day. Two good teams fighting for a playoff spot. If the Cardinals lose, they may just be out. That might be the end of them.
How tough is that going to be to be like a 10 or 11 win team, and you're not even being considered anymore
Yeah,
because the other two teams in your division are that good.
are that good. Well, and a lot of that has to do with the NFC East being that bad and stealing a playoff spot. We'll talk about that later. Giants and Seahawks are a minute in. Seahawks have the ball. The Eagles and the Packers have yet to kick off. That's a 125 kickoff. The Patriots Chargers also at 125. Tonight, the late game is Broncos at the Chiefs. And then the Monday doubleheader, which you should probably get used to because of the rescheduling, is the Washington football team at the Steelers in the early 2 o'clock Pacific Monday afternoon. You can't watch it because you're at work game. And then the 5:15 Pacific is Bills at the 49ers. And the 49ers are coming on. They're getting healthy. Be
Trying.
careful. Is
Yeah.
all I'm saying. And then of course the Tuesday night game, which is a thing, or a Tuesday or a Wednesday night game now. The Cowboys at the Ravens. Um, I I don't know that I like the fact that there's football all week, kind of right. But when they
I
put
do
them on at 3:40 in the afternoon,
doesn't help me.
it doesn't help me at all. I mean, I'll be honest. I didn't get much work done last Wednesday, so I was watching the football game while I was trying to work from home, and that was not okay. Anyway, let's move forward. So I want to talk about playoff teams. I want to talk about that NFL for a minute and get your take, because we had this conversation, and I want to get it on the air because we had a big conversation about who we think is and or isn't a playoff team right now. And I,
Right.
I want to say, here's what I've boiled this down to. Let's see if you're going to agree with me or not. There's the top tier teams. We'll call them tier one. I think there's three. All right. And I'm going to tell you who they are: Pittsburgh, Kansas City, and New Orleans.
Okay.
Would you put another team in that tier, or is there somebody I'm missing, or would you not have
I'd,
one of these three teams?
I'd put two more teams in that tier, which are Seattle and Green Bay.
Really? So okay.
I'd put Seattle and Green Bay in there because Seattle's one of those teams that if you don't believe they're going to lose, I never believe they're going to lose. When they lose, it's surprising usually. It's pretty much a shock. And then the Packers are one of those teams that you might think that there's no way they're going to win a game, but you also, again, like the Seahawks, don't really believe they're going to lose either. When you have that feeling about teams, I feel like that makes you a tier one team because all these other teams you start having different feelings about when you watch a player when you're looking at upcoming games. But those teams you're like, oh yeah, they're probably gonna win. Packers probably gonna win. Seattle's probably gonna win.
So,
So tier one.
see, you think that? So just to clarify, you think that Green Bay, say, if they win the NFC, is good enough to number one win the NFC, beat New Orleans and or Seattle in a championship game,
Sure.
and you think that they're capable of beating Pittsburgh or Kansas City in a Super Bowl?
Yes.
Okay, all right,
Yes. I believe that. Yeah. Not
okay,
many teams I believe that about, but I would believe that the Seahawks could beat any of those teams. I believe the Packers can beat any of those teams. I believe that the other three teams that you listed could beat any of those five teams. So,
okay.
yeah, I believe in them.
Okay. I've listed them as second tier teams. Now,
Sure.
you disagree with my second tier team list, but it's fairly large. Um, so when we're talking about second tier teams, in my opinion, I see Indianapolis is in that group. Tennessee now, but Tennessee's getting crushed. But you know what? They just scored. It's now 41-28, by the way. Cleveland leading Tennessee, but there's only a minute 23 left. So there's an onside
No
kick coming.
touchdown.
So Cleveland, who's going to be 9-3 if they hold on to win. Green Bay, Buffalo, Seattle, Tampa Bay, and I think the Rams fall in there just from watching them play. I think they're capable of not. I don't know if they're always capable of winning, but I think they're capable of beating anybody in the league at any time.
Right.
But I don't know if they're capable of sustaining a playoff run necessarily. They'll get them to the Super Bowl, but they're good. It's a good football team. It's a good defense.
I agree with all of those except for the two that I put in tier one because I
Okay.
think I think the same thing. When you look at these teams, you go, "Oh, they can probably win." But if they lose, it's not necessarily surprising. When the Rams lose a game, I'm not like, "Whoa, they did." I'm like, "Oh, well,
Right.
the Rams they have ups and downs." When you have that sort of rationalization about teams, like, "Oh, well, they lose sometimes," then yeah, you're definitely not one of your tier one or your tier one teams. You definitely fall down a notch. So I'm with all of those tier two picks except for those two.
Okay. All right. I uh, I feel like okay. So let's cover the tier three teams. These are the teams that have a shot to make the playoffs. But let's be honest, there is no way they're going to win the Super Bowl. And and what I feel like that belongs in that group. That's Miami. It's Arizona. It's the Las Vegas who's showing their that side of them right now.
Putting
Baltimore.
Miami and Arizona in the same tier.
Well, Miami's got going to have 8 wins after today.
Yeah, I know. I just
How do you discount 8 wins? Yeah, they haven't played a whole lot of great teams, but they still have won 8 games, and they've done it with despite having Tua. Let's be honest, has not been a great quarterback. He's been okay, but their defense and special teams are what's winning them football games. And if their defense and special teams are going to continue to play that good, they can beat anybody.
right,
So,
right.
I mean, they're beating Cincinnati 19-7. It's Cincinnati, right? But again,
A Joe Burrowless Cincinnati. Yeah,
but that's at number 8 win. You know what I mean? It's not like it's their first win of the year and they're beating a bad team. This is they've done it consistently, beat the teams they need to beat to get to the playoffs, and that's what they're doing. I just don't think they can win a playoff game, right?
yeah. I would agree that they're not going to be a team who's going to be a
Right.
threat, and that's unfortunately that's why they don't fall in tier three for me. They fall in a lower tier.
Oh,
If I don't believe you might make the playoffs because of some default in the system, NFC
well,
East.
I haven't. Yeah, I haven't put any of the NFC East teams in tier three. They're all in tier four, even though
Yeah,
one of them is going to make the playoffs. I know that,
I'm gonna make a
but
special tier just for the NFC
right there's special tier seven. I mean, there's only 4 tiers, but they're going to be on tier seven. Uh,
Yeah.
but anyway, Arizona is one of those teams I feel like because I've watched them win some big games, but I've also watched them play some crappy. They lost to Miami. Um, you know, Las Vegas, who we just, let me go back and look at the score just because we want to get an update. The Raiders scored, by the way,
Oh
and
man.
I don't know how. I'm gonna. I
Of
have to
course it was.
hold on just a second because the Raiders scored. So Henry Ruggs caught a 46-yard touchdown pass with 30 seconds left for them to go up 31-28 after the Jets punted.
Wow.
I told you the Jets could lose in dramatic fashion.
But
The Jets, before that happened, the Jets had a 90, let me find it, about a 97, what's 98% win probability until that play happened. And now the Las Vegas has won 31-28.
this is still a loss for Las Vegas.
Oh, it is absolutely a loss for us. But it's got to be one of those games that when you're done, you go, okay, our offense wasn't terrible. We scored 31 points, and we still won. So we could just kind of shake that one off. You know what I mean?
I guess. I mean, but I mean, I guess if you're in that locker room, you do that. But if you're anybody else who watched it, you're really concerned
Oh,
about the
sure.
future of the Raiders.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that entirely. So let's talk about another game because this is like I said, there was going to be a whole bunch of good finishes. The Jaguars scored. They got their 2 point conversions, 24-24. The Minnesota has the ball, 3rd and 1 at the Jacksonville 33. They're a field goal away from winning that one. That's
Getting another concerning win.
that's a
But Minnesota hasn't been one of those teams all year you felt like has done really well.
no.
I mean, they started the season 0-4 or whatever. So
Well, and now the Jacksonville has the football. So Jacksonville has a chance to win with 13 seconds left. By the way, so missed field goal, 51-yard missed field goal by Dan Bailey, and now Jacksonville has the ball at their own 33 with 13 seconds left. But that one looks like it's headed for overtime, and that would be a big loss for a Vikings team that had they won this, it'd been 6-6, and that's in the playoff hunt at least.
little side rant. I never understand why the NFL believes that there are only 30 kickers. There's just 30, and they keep recycling the same 30 people. Dallas will cut
I,
Dan Bailey. Minnesota will pick up Dan Bailey. Do you think there's a reason why Dallas cut him? Because
I
maybe he didn't do this right, didn't do that right. Where are all of these other 150 D1 kickers going?
I will tell you this. Here's what I will tell you. I will tell you that Cleveland is trying to lose this game. Hold on, one more thing. Well, brief update. Cleveland just Baker Mayfield fumbled the football, and Tennessee ran it back to like the 10. There's only like 48 seconds left, but Tennessee is in position to make this a one-score game. They're reviewing it right now, but if that holds up as a fumble and a return, Tennessee is in. Yeah, they're right now. They'd be at like the 13-yard line, 14-yard line. Anyway, so it's chaos right now. Let's just admit it's chaos. But so I think I've always said that about head coaches, right? And lately it's been a little different. But used to be there was 33 head coaches and 32 NFL teams, right?
Right.
And they just
One
there's
guy
one
wasted
guy.
that spot. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one guy on Fox News or on Fox Sports or CBS Sports doing commentary, and then next year he'll be coaching, and some other guy will be in his spot.
Right.
Yeah, and it always seemed like that same thing was is constant. So I don't know. I mean, it's not true, but it seems like it
Feels
anyway.
that way
Yeah, it
sometimes.
feels like that way. Yeah, it feels like you see those same kickers, and a lot of those kickers have been on like 12 teams.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cody Parkey gets cut by Chicago and goes to Cleveland and starts missing field goals there.
yeah,
I,
just
I don't
missing field goals in a whole nother place. That's all you're doing.
don't get there's 140 something Division 1 football teams and all what 90 something 130 of those kickers just go away,
Yeah.
just stop playing sports altogether.
Well, and it's funny because, like you're talking about, the same 30 kickers next year is going to be the same kickers, right? And
Yeah.
and those other all those 100 and whatever Division 1 kickers that graduated that were seniors. Let's say there were half of them, so 80 some kickers, 70 kickers were graduate this year. They're not going to be playing in the NFL next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that particular position is one of those where they say, oh, you don't have a very good chance to make it as a professional because so many people want to be an NFL quarterback. Yeah, but how many NFL kickers are there really? And there's so few kickers to begin with that who carries a second kicker? Not many. It's usually the back. It's usually the punter.
There's not enough roster spots. You can't really afford to
Yeah,
bring
you
in
can't
another
really.
kicker.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
So
you teach your punter to do some of that work, and you
yeah,
teach your kicker to do some punting work.
your odds
You
are
hopefully,
better. Your odds are better of becoming an NFL long snapper, I think, than being a kicker or a punter, unless you're really, really good. So, because just recycle the same guys. And besides, let's be honest. You used to watch punters back in the day punt, and they would punt these balls and just sky high and down the field. It's 50 yards, 40 yards, whatever. But it was just these beautiful hanging punts, and they'd angle them out of bounds. And now these guys in their Australian rules punting style, where they just kind of squib it down the field. I could do that. I mean, I can't do it well, but I could do it.
it
So
has value.
it
People,
does. It's
I think
interesting though.
that they found out that the ball that hits and bounces and rolls tends to get a little closer to where you want it to go than the one that flies way up in the air is affected by wind and all that stuff like that.
It's much harder to catch too.
A little harder to catch.
All
Yeah.
right, so back to what we're talking about. So tier three teams. I have some tier three teams that I didn't list them all. Like Baltimore. Oh yeah, 49ers. The 49ers getting healthy. are the 49ers with their the 49ers, what do I want to say? Good enough when they're healthy to be a contender in the playoffs?
Yeah, but I don't think it'll matter. It's too late. I
You
think
think?
that they got healthy too late
Okay.
because they still have a game left against the Seahawks, which
Right.
I mean I'm going to give it to the Seahawks until the Seahawks prove that they don't deserve it. Um, and I think with that one with that loss, it's just going to seal their fate. They're out of the playoffs, and at that point, why rush guys back from injury? So yeah, they might be a contender, fully healthy from the beginning. They might be a contender, but at this point, it's almost moot because they're not going to be a contender. They can't get to be a contender.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. So let's talk about the NFC East for just a minute because it's my favorite topic in the NFL right now. Um, the Giants lead the division at 4-7. Washington's 4-7. Philly's 3-7-1. Dallas is 3-8. The Giants have won three straight, but to be fair, that's Washington, Philadelphia, and Cincinnati. Um, of the remaining schedule, Washington has a little bit easier schedule than the Giants, but they have to beat the Giants because the Giants have beaten Washington twice. So, do you think that Philly or Dallas can put enough together to win this, or is it going to be the Giants or Washington? I
I think it's going to be Washington. I think Washington looks like the most talented team out of all those guys.
Yeah, Washington. It's interesting because the Giants, who lead the division, have scored the fewest points of anybody in the. Well, hold on. They've scored the fewest points of anybody in the NFC,
Interesting.
but they lead the division, and the Washington team has one of the best defenses. They're like third in terms of points surrendered on the
Yeah,
season.
they're pretty good. They just got to put it together.
Yeah. So I feel like the fact that New York has beaten Washington twice, despite the fact that New York can't score and Washington's defense is pretty good, I feel like it's going to be hard for Washington to win this. That might be a touchdown. There was a Titans in the corner, throw a ball into the corner of the end zone. It looked like he might have been out of bounds, but if he's caught the ball, it's a 41-34 game with 28 seconds left. And another onside kick is upcoming. Um, Tannehill threw the ball beautifully to the corner of the end zone. He got both feet in. That's a touchdown. That was ridiculous. You're gonna have to watch that on replay if you haven't seen it. But again, like I said, there was going to be good finishes. So um, here's what I think. I feel like that NFC is just a mess. Is this the thing that's going to make the NFL change their playoff scenario, the way they do the playoffs?
Probably not because the NFC has been a mess a couple times before, and they didn't change it then.
That's true.
So this isn't the one. What needs to happen is you need to have a year where there is no good team. And that doesn't happen. That just doesn't happen because some conference is going to be down, and one team is going to rise above it. But you need to have a year where you don't have any good teams, where everybody's beating everybody. Everybody's got 5 losses. Everybody's got 6 losses, and then you'll start kind of like thinking, all right, well, do we just want to get the best teams in, as opposed to the division winners and things like that? So it's yeah, I don't think this is going to make them change a damn thing.
Huh. Well, do you? Huh. So you think that? Here's my question. So if you had a bunch of teams that were 8-8,
Yeah,
and you couldn't find a playoff, I mean, you'd have to go through coin flips to get to because that's like the 12th tiebreaker or whatever
right.
it is, right?
Yeah,
If you had to go to coin flips to figure out who would like 3 or 4 playoff spots because they were all 8-8, I don't know that you'd be able to change anything and say, oh well, we're going to do it differently because everybody's 8-8. You know what I mean? But
yep.
I feel like you have to have this like 3 teams that are really really good, and then a bunch of teams that are 7-9 because that's the only way you're going to get that. I don't know. The only way you're going to be able to justify including more teams in the playoffs. And why did we add it? Let me just rant for a minute. Why did they add an extra team for the playoffs this year? What was that for?
Make it more exciting.
But that was dumb. I think that's a dumb thing to do.
I mean,
Are they doing it for next year? Is it going to be permanent?
I think it is. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's a trial thing. I think it's going to be a permanent thing.
Well, I
It makes it a little more exciting. There's always a team that doesn't get in that probably should. This year, that team will get in.
I just
Unfortunately, there's always a team that will get in that shouldn't.
but I don't. I guess I don't understand the 7 team playoff. Why is it not 8?
Well,
You
so that
know?
way you can get the first team a bye. If you do 8, you can't get the first team a bye.
Yeah, but the way they have it now with 6, the first 2 teams get a bye.
Right, but no, the way they have it now with 7, the
Oh
first team
well.
gets a bye, bye, 6 teams
Right.
play.
I didn't mean now. I meant
The way
previously
they
to this
had
year.
it, yeah, the
Yeah.
way they had it, the first 2 teams get a bye. Why do you get a bye for second place? What did you do? You're the second best team in a conference. You don't get a special trophy for being in second. No, you get the bye for first. You're the best record in there, and you're the best team in your conference. Absolutely get a bye. But if you're the second best team, you don't get a bye. You need to play. I never liked the fact that teams could skate through, as the number 2 with a bye. Like I
Yeah.
don't I don't want to hear it. Yeah.
So quick update: the Browns have hung on to win. They recovered the onside kick. Its final score 41-35 from Nashville. But what a comeback by the Titans! Um, just you can't start playing in the third quarter. That's
Right.
not helpful. uh, Jaguars and Vikings are in overtime, 24-24. Vikings have the football on their own 20, but it's 4th and 14. Um, the Saints beat the Falcons 21-16. Dolphins and Bengals are still playing. Bengals have the ball and they're driving. They're at the Miami 20, 1st and 10 with 2 minutes. It's a minute 56 left to go. So that game's not over. The Cardinals scored first. They're up 7-0 on the Rams. The Seahawks scored first. They're up 3-0 on the Giants. The Lions beat the Bears 34-30. The Raiders, we told you, come back to win 31-28. The Colts did win against the Texans 26-20. Eagles, Packers, Patriots, Chargers have kicked off. Those are the other 2 games in the afternoon. It's 0-0 scoreless in both games. They just kicked off. So that's your NFL update basically for the day. I want to talk about Trevor Lawrence for just a minute.
Sure.
He's obviously the prize, or what everyone assumed would be the prize for being last in the NFL this year. You would get to pick Trevor Lawrence, and we talked about tanking for Trevor on multiple shows. My question is this: is number one, is it Trevor Lawrence? Should it be Kyle Trask from Florida, who
No.
does nothing but throw touchdown passes?
Against weak SEC defenses, yeah.
Oh, okay. And the ACC defenses are better than Trevor Lawrence?
Negative, but exploiting a default and just generally being talented in spite of is impressive. Trevor Lawrence has not only done it in his conference, but he's done it on the biggest stage against other conferences. He's
Okay.
been fine. He's proven it otherwise. What has Kyle Trask done at Florida? What has Florida done in the last few years? I mean, every year they're one of those teams that kind of gets up and then kind of gets down. Not really sure who they are. So until Kyle Trask does it at a very big level, very effectively, still, I'm not going to give it too much credit. I'm not going to give him the satisfaction of that. It's Trevor Lawrence's pick to lose. He's the best quarterback in there. He's proven he's the best quarterback. He's made all the right decisions. He's not had health issues. He's not had transfer issues. He's played consistently and very effectively. He's got no reason to believe that Trevor Lawrence isn't the best quarterback in this draft.
Okay. And I hear what you're saying.
But
I hear what you're saying. I would tell you that from a statistical standpoint, Kyle Trask way outshines Trevor Lawrence. Now you're saying it's against bad defenses, okay, and that's fine. I would tell you that yes, Trevor Lawrence has won a national championship. Um,
played for 2.
yeah, well, sure, but he also had the benefit of Travis Etienne and multiple wide receivers that were fantastic. Um, I don't know. I feel and a defense that is clearly good. Florida this year is better than they have been. They did lose to Alabama, but they are going to play in the SEC championship game. They've already locked that up. Trask has 38 touchdowns and 3 interceptions this year. He's been on sack 10 times.
Great.
Trevor Lawrence has 20 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. He's been sacked 11 times.
Yep.
And he's played less games because he was sat out one.
Yep.
But Trask has thrown for about 800 more yards. Now it's on a lot more attempts, 72 more attempts. So his yards per attempt is 10 for Trask, and Trevor Lawrence is 9.7. So they're almost identical. But I don't know. I feel like maybe someone would take a chance on Kyle Trask as opposed to Trevor Lawrence if they were to get the number 1 pick. I don't know that there's another player out there. I mean, if we're going to talk about that, Dylan Gabriel of Central Florida is the passing yardage leader in the NCAA. Right. But he's definitely got a lower completion percentage, and he's been sacked 22 times. Of course, that could be a product of offensive line. We know that's a thing that happens in the NFL, especially. So my second question was, let's assume Trevor Lawrence is number 1.
Right.
And the Jets clearly found a way to lose today so they could be number one.
Yeah.
Uh, didn't want to let Jacksonville take control of that number one playoff spot or number one draft spot. So if Trevor Lawrence is number one and the Jets decide they want to have him, does Trevor Lawrence go to the Jets or does he pull an Eli Manning and say, I'm not going to the Jets?
I don't think he does that. We talked about this a little bit before when we were planning, but nobody's done that in a while. That is a very old school thing to do. That's the thing that John Elway did. That's the thing that Eli Manning did. That's about as recent as that happened, where somebody was like, "I'm not going to play for you," and but it doesn't happen anymore. Also, I don't believe that I don't believe Trevor Lawrence to be of that character. I don't know why. Like I could see Eli doing this. I could see John Elway doing that sort of thing. I see a bunch of other guys doing. I don't really see Trevor Lawrence making that kind of demand. If you pick me, I'm not going to play for you. Also, he doesn't have a big baseball career to lean back on. He doesn't
No, he
have
doesn't.
another sport that he's been excelling at, which has shown a heavy interest in making him a professional. So this is kind of it. If you don't play for that team that's going to take you, you're probably not going to play, and they'll have your rights until you decide to start playing. And let's be real, if you say you're not going to play for the Jets, fine, we'll hold your rights, and we'll just keep playing Darnold, our other first round pick.
Yeah,
You know,
but
I mean that's not a great situation, but how does it help Trevor Lawrence to hold out? It
well,
gets
I
him to a
mean,
better team if the teams agree.
well, it's true. It's true. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that that's something that has happened before. And if you didn't want to be, you've seen the way the Jets are, and you've seen how bad a team they are. I mean, clearly they had this game in hand and couldn't win.
Yeah, but
Um,
I'm also not sure how much they're not tanking. But this is
oh,
an
that's true.
unpredictable.
But my point is that as you as the quarterback, as Trevor Lawrence, if you watch the Jets play and you see the bad, right? You have to do one of two things. You either have to assume they're tanking, right,
Right.
to get you, or you say, man, this is a really bad football team. I'm not sure I want to be A, sacked a whole bunch, and B, lose every game when I'm used to winning everything.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's going to be a little decision to be made. You know what I mean? But maybe not. I could be wrong, but I'm just saying. I feel like that'd be one of those. This would be that team that if you were going to say I don't want to play there, I don't want to go to New York because I don't want to play in New York. It's too much pressure. There's too much scrutiny, right? Guys have a hard time playing in New York. They really do.
Yeah.
Lots of media. Nobody's friendly. When you're bad, nobody's friendly.
I get it. I just don't
Okay,
I don't I somebody hasn't done this in a long time. I don't think he's going to be the next
the
person
guy.
to do it.
Okay, all right,
I
all
would
right.
have seen a Baker Mayfield doing that more than I would have seen a what's it called Trevor Lawrence doing
Trevor
it.
Lawrence. Okay, all right, all right. So second half of the show brought to you by Boss Kitty Hand Dyed Yarns. Go to bosskittyshop.com for your yarns, notions, Boss Kitty merchandise, or pick up a bosskittyshop.com gift card. They're good on the website for anything. Um, Tune in to BossKittyLive.com at 6 p.m. every Monday and Wednesday and 11 a.m. every other Sunday for nerdy yarn craft games, giveaways, and more. That's Boss Kitty, yarn so boss you'll knit your pants. So let's talk about the second half of the show. So second half of the show, we're going to talk about college football a little bit. So I think it was an interesting week in college football, and I'll tell you why. The teams that were lower in the rankings lost, and the teams that were higher in the rankings kind of held serve, and it did nothing to change anything in terms of college football, just in general. Um, Nothing was really shook up. So I'm going to run you down the top 25 scoreboard real quick from college football this weekend. Alabama, number one, Alabama throttled LSU 55-17. They had 45 points at the half. Notre Dame beat Syracuse up pretty bad, 45-21, and that's a 1-10 Syracuse team, so they had no hope to begin with. Number three, Clemson beat Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech. Sluggish first half. It was 17-10 Clemson at the half, but they pulled away in the second half. Ohio State hammered Michigan State 52-12. So your top four all won easily, handily, and if you want to call it impressively, that's fine. Texas A&M scored 17 points in the fourth quarter to beat Auburn 31-20. That's number 5 Texas A&M. So they won as well, but they struggled a little bit with an Auburn team that's 5-4. Number 6 Florida beat Tennessee 31-19. Tennessee's lost 6 straight. Um, yeah. After starting the year 2-0, and there was hope. But number 9, Iowa State clinched the regular season Big 12 championship. What does that mean? Nothing. They won 42-6 over West Virginia. It just means that they're secured a spot in the Big 12 championship game, which pits number 1 against number 2. Number 10, Miami beat Duke 48 to nothing. That's a 2-8 Duke team. So a lot of bad matchups. Number 11, Oklahoma 27 to 14 over Baylor. Number 12, Indiana played some defense and won 14 to 6 over Wisconsin. And there was one of two ranked matchups. So Indiana 6-1 and has a chance to go to the Big Ten championship game if Ohio State and Michigan don't play next Saturday. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Number 18, Coastal Carolina 22. Number 13, BYU 17 in a game that was set up, I think, on Thursday when the Coastal Carolina game got canceled with Liberty. That's who they were supposed to play. Oklahoma State lost at TCU 29-22, and that pretty much doused their chances of getting into the Big 12 championship game. North Carolina, number 17, won 49-9 over Western Carolina. Number 19, Iowa 35-21 over Illinois. Rice upset number 21 Marshall 20-0 at Marshall. Stanford won at Washington 31-26. California beat 23 Oregon 21-17. Number 24 Tulsa was a winner over Navy 19-6. And then you had a couple of games, top 10 or top 25 games postponed or canceled. They call it postponed in the SEC. Georgia Vanderbilt was postponed, and Minnesota Northwestern was canceled in the Big Ten. So the college football rankings essentially will remain unchanged because the top 4 teams all won and won big, and it wasn't even close. We're going to talk about college football playoff in a minute, but I wanted to talk a minute about Oregon first and foremost. And the soon-to-be unranked Ducks lost to previously winless California, and the offense looked bad. Their offense and defense both committed costly penalties at crucial times during the game. Tyler Shook, in my opinion, was awful. He made numerous bad decisions in the read option, like handing the ball off when he shouldn't and keeping the ball when he shouldn't. He made some poor throws two wide receivers for sure that I watched who were wide open. I mean, nobody within 10 yards of him, and he couldn't hit him. He didn't look right. Something was wrong. Maybe he's hurt. I don't know, but he just was not quite ready to. It was an ugly game. What was your opinion of watching the game?
I wasn't that blown away by the results. They did not play. Oregon did not play good enough to win. I would not say they played bad. I would not say that Tyler Shuck was that bad. I would say that the issue, as I always think the issue is, comes down to simple play calling. I believe that Mario Cristobal does not have a grasp on how to play call for this Duck team. He might have had it with Herbert. He might have had it with other people. He might have known how to play call for this person or that person, but he does not have it with this team. He does not understand the basic concepts around what's working, what's not working, do this, do that. He overthinks it or he's underthinking it. I don't know, but he's not doing it right. I think it begins and ends with him. I think that you put Travis Dye out there and he runs the ball 4 or 5 times in a row, getting 5-7 yards a pop, and then on the 4th and 1 play, you put in CJ Verdell, who had 8 carries for 9 yards. You have this other guy who's averaging 7 yards a carry, and on a 4th and 1 play, you put in the guy who's averaging 1 yard a carry. Like, it's not a smart decision. And maybe that's overthinking, maybe that's underthinking. I don't know what he's doing. But whatever it is, I think it starts and ends with him because I watched plays, I watched 3rd down and long plays that were awful calls. I watched, and then there was the penalty issue. All right, this is where you get onto the team. They committed, in one drive, committed 3 penalties that kept them in the game. One of those penalties was a little bogus, pass interference in the end zone.
Yep.
No one liked that call. It was a trash call. Pac-12 officials, what are you going to do? But, they commit a penalty on a punt that gives them a first down. They commit another penalty, an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that gives them a first down. They kept a drive alive. They could have easily walked into that game at that point, taken them up, 2 scores with the way their offense had been clicking coming into that second half. But instead, that's what happens. And it gives a big drive, and it gives them the lead, and it just kind of all goes a little haywire. But Mario Cristobal needs to rally this team, get their heads on straight, and then get his own head on straight because I don't think it's working. And yeah, the Ducks lost every lineman on earth, and the Ducks lost five, five defensive starters, great players that were going to have a huge would have a huge impact on any team. They got a lot of reasons why you could look at the season and go, yeah, this kind of makes sense. They lost everyone, but I don't think there's a good excuse for it. I think that Mario Cristobal should bear the brunt of all of this because you're putting Shuck out there. This is his first year coming off a loss to Oregon State. Want to see you do something differently? You start slow again, just like you did against Oregon State. And it's frustrating to watch. And if it happens once, it's probably the players. If it happens twice, it's probably the coaches.
So, okay, I feel a little differently in that I think, well, number one, let's give Mario Cristobal a little bit of a break and say that Joe Moorhead, the offensive coordinator, probably called a lot of those plays, but he's doing it within Mario Cristobal's philosophy, right?
Right.
Okay. So some of those play calls are going to be on the offensive coordinator. That 4th and 1 call you're talking about for sure, where Verdell came in. So it reminded me when it happened. I made a comment out loud that I was like, you know what? The old Oregon teams. Let's talk about a Chip Kelly Oregon team. 4th and 1 is coming, right? He's not going to power it right up the middle, even though he could have, right? Yeah. And if he did, it would be out of some formation with 4 wideouts. You know what I mean? Where he's trying to spread the field and make them have less in the middle to stop that 1 yard run. And it would have been quick. It would have been right now. Oh, we're 4th and 1. Let's go. And that creates hesitation on the defense, misalignment. Just by inches, they get off center, they get off their spot just by a little bit, and you get leverage. All of a sudden, it opens up a hole. I didn't see this team once go up tempo.
Not really.
Yeah, I mean, where's that? Because you got to, if you're not playing well, make the defense do something different than what they're doing already, and they never did that. They never really made them make adjustments. You got to do something, and I missed that quick. Okay, it's going to be 4th and 1. If we don't get it, and it's 4th and 1, the play's already called. Get up to the line of scrimmage and let's go.
Right.
And
I did that quite a few times.
Yeah, you got to do that. That creates confusion on the defense, and I think I don't know. I miss that kind of play calling. I miss the up tempo offense, just in general, because I think it is hard for college players to be in the right spot at the right time every single play when they've only got a few seconds to get ready. Yeah, you get the more time you give them, and that 4th and 1's a classic example. They ran the play on 3rd down, came up short, and waited because they wanted a review.
Right.
And so they took a long time to make the review, and then once they reviewed it and said, "Oh, it's confirmed, he's short," or it stands. I think it was stands. At that point, I'd have been on the ball, ready to go. Instead, they still huddled. I mean, you had that whole review part of time where you could have just called the play and been ready to go, right. but they didn't do that. And so that's the stuff I'm missing. I feel like that's missing. Tyler Shuck made some bad throws just to nobody. There were throws that hit the ground. It didn't even go. Yeah. And that's concerning because I know he's young, but you're playing at a Division I Power 5, what's supposed to be a really good football team. Not great, but they're supposed to be good. And you've got good weapons around you, but he can't get the ball to them. That becomes a problem because some of those were not because the defense was good, and
some of them were just poor.
Yeah, some of them were just poor, and that was frustrating for me because I don't like. I mean, not that I have a choice, but you just don't like seeing it on the field. I want to see a guy. Okay, there's a guy wide open. There's nobody within 10 yards of him. You got to put the ball where he can catch it. Give him a chance to catch it because there were a couple times.
It's one of those things too where you look back and you don't remember Justin Herbert making these mistakes, but he did.
Oh, I'm sure.
You don't remember Marcus Mariota making these mistakes, but he did.
Oh, I'm sure.
Not as often though for Marcus, but and then Darren Thomas definitely made these mistakes.
Oh yeah.
It happens, but the thing is, you have to win in spite of your mistakes.
Right. And the 2 fumbles were just awful, just costly.
They were pretty terrible.
Yeah.
The one by what's his name? The one by Shuck, where he was trying to roll out to the right and got tackled and was trying to spin for extra yardage.
Yeah, you got to go down.
You're a quarterback, man. You're not that big. You're not that strong, and I get it. You're a competitor, but damn, dude, live to fight another day.
You got to go down. Yeah. That was bad. But this is an Oregon team. Let's be honest, and it wasn't Travis Dye this time, I don't think, but he's prone to fumble. This is an Oregon team that throughout their history, let's be honest, has been prone to fumbles. It,
They have had moments, yeah.
yeah, it's not an unusual thing, which is weird, and I don't know if that has to do with the size of the players, the strength. You know, I mean, they're strong guys. Well, Michael James, super strong guy, right?
Yeah.
But they're small, right?
Yeah.
And at some point in time, if you get hit in the right spot, you get overpowered. There's more power than what you've got strength to hold the football. The ball pops out. You know, maybe it's just ball security. Maybe it's just that they're not, holding it right. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is,
They have
but
that extremely jacked up strength coach. You'd think they'd all be,
right. I mean,
strong.
he's got that mustache on his mask and everything. Um, I don't know. I it was disheartening to watch. Um, but all that being said, and as bad as they looked against the defense looked against Oregon State, I thought the defense was much better against Cal.
Right.
But their offense was just unable to do anything. One gigantic touchdown play, you take that one away from Oregon, they scored 10 points, right?
Yeah.
So that was miserable to watch. But they still control their own destiny because of Washington's loss
Thanks to a couple losses, yeah.
and because Oregon State lost. Now all they have to do
Yeah.
is beat Washington next week. They win the North.
And I'll
And
tell you that Oregon State team without Jamar Jefferson,
yeah,
they're not very good.
they're not very good. You're absolutely right. But that just shows you that one player, even though everyone knows he's the guy, he can make the difference.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah. He
yeah,
is the offense because his movement sets up the quarterback's movement. And being fair, they did lose both the starter quarterback and the starting running back. So
that's true.
that's a little tough for them.
It is a little tough. But they still Oregon State played well against Utah, but just couldn't quite pull that one out. They tried to
They
come
tried to
from
come
behind.
back.
Yeah, it wasn't quite doing it. So that's the next thing I was going to cover was the rest of the Pac-12 and the scores. Um, like we told you, Stanford beat Washington. Stanford was winning pretty easily. Washington came back and made it closer than it was, but it was 31-26 in Seattle. Colorado remained unbeaten. Their 24-13 win over Arizona at Arizona, but Arizona is also winless. Um, and then Oregon State lost at Utah 30-24. Scored 14 points in the fourth quarter. They made a comeback, but it wasn't enough. And then UCLA wins at Arizona State. UCLA's 3-2. I got to tell you, I feel like UCLA might be the scariest team in the Pac-12. Um,
They're a tough team.
once they got their running back, once they got they've got some quality players. Once they got their running game moving, right, and they're dangerous on the ground, that opens up a lot of things. And I feel like their defense is playing well enough, but it's Demetric Felton, right, who ran rush shot over Oregon, Cal, and whoever. Who was it last week? I can't remember who they played last week. He ran for 200 yards last week. Um, their running game has been really good, and Dorian Thompson Robinson is that kind of quarterback for Chip Kelly. Not maybe quite as good as some of the quarterbacks he had at Oregon, but he is that dual threat, mobile, escapable quarterback who has a good enough arm. Um, I think they're dangerous. I think they're going to play USC next weekend, and they're already out of the South race. But I think that's because they lost those couple of games early.
Yeah.
Um, they lost to Colorado 48-42, and they lost to Oregon 38-35. So a 6-point loss and a 3-point loss are keeping them from playing. If they'd won either one of those games, they'd be playing for the South Championship probably against USC next weekend. So anyway, I'm just saying, just from a watching standpoint, UCLA looks like a good football team. I don't know if they are, but they look good.
They
Which
played Oregon really tough, yeah.
which brings me to another question. USC's 4-0.
Yeah.
Wait, back up. USC is 3-0.
3-0.
Colorado's 4-0, 3-0 in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
The Colorado USC game got canceled.
Sure.
If USC and Colorado both win next week, Colorado plays Utah, USC plays UCLA. If they both win, they're both 4-0 in the conference.
Right.
Who wins the division?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know what the
Uh,
tiebreaker on that is.
Common opponents probably first, and then I don't know. There's probably a whole set of protocols in place
I'm
that
sure.
we could probably look up on the Pac-12's website, but I would guess common opponents would be the first step. Who'd you play that was similar and I mean, obviously they're both 4-0, but what were those games? What were your margin of victories? Blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
So
Colorado.
maybe it just gets down to a coin flip.
Colorado snuck in there and won a game against San Diego State. They have a non-conference game on their win total. which is going to
Right.
bring me to a whole nother question. So I first of all, let me just tell you also that Washington State and USC play today
Yes.
at 4:30.
Let's go Wazoo. Let's clear up the confusion.
It would help to clear up the confusion if they win. But anyway, so then of course Colorado could lose to Utah next week and it would still be confusing. Anyway,
Right.
so a lot of things still could happen. But Washington State and USC play at 4:30 today. It's on Fox Sports 1 if you want to watch it. Brings me to another game that happens kind of spur of the moment, and that's BYU and Coastal Carolina.
Best game of the
Um,
week.
okay. Coastal Carolina had a game with Liberty scheduled for this week. Liberty's beaten two ACC opponents this year, and Coastal Carolina got I don't know if I want to say avoided them, but this is a COVID related postponement or cancellation. So they had an open spot on their schedule. BYU had an open spot on their schedule, and they agreed to go play them at Coastal Carolina, and they lost. So BYU loses a really good football game to watch, and it was by a yard. It was reminiscent of the Super Bowl, the Titans and the Rams. Um, pass complete, guys lunging for the end zone, but he gets tackled a yard short. It was a great game to watch.
Right.
My problem with this game is I don't like the fact that you had a team like BYU, the number 13 team, quote unquote, in the country, is able to just schedule suddenly another top 25 team
Right.
outside, but they don't have a conference BYU, so it really doesn't matter.
Right.
But to just schedule a game at random, these other teams from these other conferences don't necessarily have that ability to do that. Because if my opponent doesn't have COVID and our game's not canceled, I don't have an opening. Oregon hasn't had a team cancel,
Right.
and they're not able to just go schedule a top 25 team to go beat and look good in the eyes of the college football playoff committee. Now, it backfired on BYU, but I don't feel like that. Not that you can do anything about it. They're going to schedule what they're going to schedule, but those kind of games, you should almost throw those out as a college football playoff because,
Why?
well, it shouldn't have happened to begin with.
Why not?
Well, it wasn't on schedule.
So?
Well, you in a regular season that would never have happened. So you're going to say that because of COVID,
But maybe it should have.
because of COVID, I'm going to allow because well, hold on, because another team got COVID, not your team, right? You're allowed to go schedule whoever you want to go play. I don't. Nebraska was trying to do that earlier in the year, and the Big Ten wouldn't let them.
Right. Thank you, Big Ten. That's why being independent has its plus.
Understand, but what I'm getting at is that team was not allowed to go do that. This team is allowed to go do that. That is a double standard. That's not okay.
It is okay by the NCAA. Is like, sure, go ahead. The only people stopping it are the conference.
I
If so
understand that.
the NCAA okays it, then it is okay.
I'm not blaming the NCAA. I'm telling you that team was not allowed to go do the same thing this team is allowed to do. And
By their
I'm not saying the NCAA is at fault. What I'm telling you is the College Football Playoff Committee can't hold that against Nebraska. Now Nebraska's terrible and it doesn't matter. But what if it had been Ohio State?
Yeah. I see. I completely see what you're saying, but also the NCAA came out and said we will leave scheduling to the conferences or to the teams. That's your guys' decision. It's a weird year. You guys handle it. The Big Ten decided how they wanted to proceed. All right, that has nothing to do with Notre Dame, or has nothing to do with BYU or the military schools and things like that. The ones who are independents, they can do what they want to do. The Big Ten's going to control their people. So I'm not going to fault BYU just because they're not in the conference and were able to pull this thing off that was super beneficial to them, beneficial to Coastal Carolina. There was heavy exposure all around, and it ended up being a great game. And you're always saying as the committee, go out and beat somebody. Go out and beat somebody. Go play a good team. We need to see you get a quality win. Well, they managed to have a game be canceled, schedule, get out there, play it, all on little notice. They basically just reformatted the system on, hey, are you available this weekend? Yeah, let's play a matchup.
So
They basically tweaked it, but they got what the committee wants, because at the end of the season, if BYU won or Coastal Carolina is in a position to get in, which they won't be, but if they were, that would be the knock against them. Well, who did you beat? What quality opponents did you beat? If they're gonna knock them for it, so you can't knock them if they go out and do it.
I have an issue with it being I have an issue with it being not fair to another team why can't I drop our game against Purdue, who's terrible, and go schedule a top 25 team that maybe has a COVID bye?
Bring it up with your conference.
Right. That's my problem.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but you also have to admit that because my game didn't get canceled, I get screwed by playing 0-8 whoever.
Right. Well, the Pac-12 came out and said that if a game gets canceled, you can schedule non-conference games.
Here's the problem with that. Washington tried to schedule BYU last week when the Apple Cup got canceled, and
what
BYU said no.
Okay. So now we're getting into another thing: is will a team take on you?
Right.
That's a whole nother bag of things. That's a team just purely declining the invitation because.
But you know why they did it, right? I'll tell you why they did it. At that point, Washington was unranked and there was no gain in it for BYU. But this game is a ranked team. It was a chance for us to show that we can beat a ranked team. Now, like I said, it backfired. But that's why they chose this game over that game.
This worked out perfectly for Coastal Carolina.
It did, but they're still not going to get in the playoff.
You know how many people didn't know that they had turquoise turf?
A lot. There's a lot until you watch.
And now people are like crazy. Like, man, this is really cool looking.
Do not adjust your TV set. That your color's not wrong.
You were seeing that right.
It is an ugly green. You're not wrong. It's teal-ish or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I don't know what that color is.
I'll say I like their uniforms.
They're kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a pretty good looking squad.
I'm okay with that. Yeah,
I get why it's tough, and I get why you'd want to just be able to be like, all right, well, our game's not happening this weekend. Hey, random ranked team,
right?
You want to play us this weekend? But again, there's 3 steps to it. One is, does the NCAA allow it? Yes, they do. Does your conference allow it? Some of them no, some of them yes. And then 3, will the team accept it?
Right.
And in this case, you met all 3 criteria. There was no conference. It didn't really matter. But
I didn't say it was illegal. What I'm saying is I don't like it.
But you said the committee shouldn't count it, and I think that's a preposterous notion. They still went out. They played a ranked team. They lost, and the other team played a ranked team and won, and they got it on national television. I think that's great.
Right. I personally don't. I think Colorado's 4-0 because they played a San Diego State team to fill in a game that no one else had the opportunity to fill in because they didn't have a COVID. Nobody was there to play. Nobody else had a bye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are other teams that could have scheduled a game when their opponent went down, but they didn't know nobody was there to schedule, so they couldn't schedule. And then all of a sudden, there's some teams that are doing it, and some teams that aren't able to do it because, like I said, Oregon being an example, has played all of their games and hasn't had someone come and give them a bye where they could go schedule another team. So I feel like you got to be consistent, and nobody's being consistent. And I understand this is the year of inconsistency. I get all that. I just don't like it. I don't have to like it. In my opinion, I think it's wrong to have one team in your conference be able to go out and schedule a non-conference game, and another team can't because no one else in his conference got COVID in any of their games. You know what I mean? I feel like you're punishing a team for the other teams being healthy. That's not okay. Let's not do that. So, I don't know. It's just weird to me. This whole season is bad. We haven't even talked about the playoff committee. Let's talk about them right now for just a brief minute. The top 4 all won.
Yep.
The NCAA playoff committee has this right where they want it. Let's be honest. So Alabama's 1, Notre Dame's 2. They're both unbeaten. Clemson is 3. They've already lost to Notre Dame. Ohio State's 4. Ohio State is supposed to play Michigan next week. Michigan has some COVID issues this week. I don't know if they're going to be able to play next week. If Ohio State can't play next week and play at Michigan, right? If that game gets canceled, Ohio State will not have enough games to play for the Big Ten championship.
Right.
If Ohio State can't play, Indiana goes to the Big 12 championship game. So at that point, you know exactly what the college football playoff committee is going to do. They're going to still take Ohio State.
Probably.
And regardless of the fact that they couldn't make it to their championship. Well, they would have, but you can't say that. You know what I mean? This is going to be another level of stupidity, in my opinion, that's going to happen. Is they're going to change their rule. Oh, well, they've only played 5 games, and they really have to have played 6 games, except we're going to break the rules because it's Ohio State, and we want them in the playoff. And that if you're going to do that, hold on. If you're going to do that, then just do that. At the beginning of the season, pick your 4 teams, and we don't even need to play the rest of the season. That's the way I look at it. But you already had Ohio State penciled in right from the get-go, and you're going to get them in no matter what at this point because you know that they're one of the best 4 teams. I do. I think they are. But that doesn't mean you just pencil them in. There's still rules, procedure to follow. No, apparently not. We're just changing the rules whenever we need to because that's what this year does. I don't like it. They've set up the SEC because Texas A&M is 5th. How is Texas A&M 5th? They're not going to win their division. This is back to a whole LSU Alabama thing. They didn't even win their division. because Alabama's going to win the division. Texas A&M's already lost to Alabama, but you got them 5th ahead of a team that is going to win their division in the SEC, and that's Florida, because Texas A&M beat Florida, but they're at 5-6. So you've got them in perfect position so that if Florida beats Alabama, there's an argument for Florida to get in, right? If Alabama beats Florida, Alabama's already in, and it makes another great win for them, right? If Clemson beats Notre Dame, you've already said that by Notre Dame beating Clemson, Clemson is still the 3rd best team in the country. So if Clemson beats Notre Dame, you're not going to drop Notre Dame out of the top 4. They're still going to be 2-3. You're just going to swap places. That's all they're going to do. You've already given that precedent already. And so Ohio State's the only person that could affect this, or Florida, if you think Florida can beat Alabama. But if Florida beats Alabama, they're not going to take Alabama out of the top 4. You're going to put a one-loss Alabama team out of the college football playoff? No, they're not going to do that. So what happens if Florida beats Alabama? Ohio State can't play in their conference championship game. You're going to watch Florida jump Texas A&M. Alabama, Florida, Notre Dame, Clemson is going to be your final, your top 4. And they've got it squared away so that they don't have to worry about anything at this point. The college football playoff has your 4 teams, 3 of them for sure, and Ohio State if they qualify. The question is, will a Florida SEC champion trump an Ohio State Big Ten team that hasn't played a championship but is undefeated?
If you're looking for a year of fairness,
it's not here.
Stop looking. Because it's been that way for the NBA. It's been that way for the MLB. It's that way for the NFL. And twist, it's going that way for college football. So whatever you think is fair, it's not going to be that way.
It's going to lead me to my second rant, which is NBA expanded their playoffs. NFL is expanding their playoffs. Major League Baseball expanded their playoffs. College football said, no, we're not going to do that. This is the perfect opportunity this year to allow the 5 conference championships in automatically and add 3 more teams and make it an 18 playoff. We can't change our rules now. You're changing every rule in the book for this year, but we're not going to change this rule. Come on, man. Perfect opportunity to make things even. They're not going to do it. So that's the way I look at it.
I'm not putting too much stock in anything that happens this year. You won the 2020 NBA bubble. You won the 2020 MLB bubble. You won the 2020 college football playoff. Doesn't make any sense. Like I don't give it a ton of credit. You won in a year when most teams couldn't play full schedules.
Right.
Doesn't matter to me. So whatever happens, I am pretty disinterested in the process and things like that. Fairness doesn't really matter because it isn't going to be there. There's no way it's going to be there. Yeah. If anything, it's good because it's going to highlight deficiencies in how you pick teams and how teams are selected and what the criteria are for them and things like that. So it's just going to be interesting to see how it goes down the stretch.
I'm just tired of it being subjective. I'm tired of the whole process being subjective. Stop. You've got a way to make this objective, and you won't do it. You've been trying for so long to tell us we've got a definitive way to make number 1 and number 2 play each other. No, you don't. You still don't. You're still not allowing every conference champion in. You just saying that they're not good enough to be in. How do you know they won't beat your team? How do you know that the Big 12 champion, Iowa State, isn't going to beat Alabama? You don't know that. I mean, you assume that. I assume that. But anybody can beat anybody on a given day if they're good enough. You know what I mean? It could happen. But you're not willing to allow it to happen. And I think that it's super controlled, and you're only going to see the same 5 or 6 teams get in that college football playoff just about every year. 3 of them are set almost every year, right? SEC champion, ACC champion, Big Ten champion, pretty much in there automatically. So everybody else is fighting for a playoff spot. I think that's kind of stupid, but what do I know? Let's go. So let's tell you what I think was the best game of the week in college football. It was not the BYU Coastal Carolina game. If you like watching teams play football and execute offensively, Missouri played Arkansas this week, and Missouri beat Arkansas 50-48 on a Harrison Mevis 32-yard field goal as time expired. A lot of points. So Missouri scored 27 points in the fourth quarter. Arkansas scored 15, so there's 42 points in the fourth quarter. The teams combined for 1,219 yards of offense. There was 1 punt, no turnovers, but there was no defense either. Missouri's Larry Roundtree, 27 carries, 185 yards, 3 touchdowns. Arkansas's Trelon Smith, 26 carries, 172 yards, and 3 touchdowns. They kind of balanced out, negated each other. 2 fantastic rushing performances. Also for Arkansas, Treylon Burks, had 10 catches for 206 yards and a touchdown. But it was Mevis, Harrison Mevis. He had 5 field goals, 51, 29, 37, 40, and 32 yards, and 5 extra points to finish with 20 points in the game. and Missouri wins what was a fantastic, fun fourth quarter comeback, back and forth game to watch that ends on a last second field goal. And I thought that was a lot more fun than the BYU Coastal Carolina, just in general. I like offense.
I like offense too, but I also like when people are playing for something that matters, playing for ranking, playing for whatever it is. Like
Yeah.
I feel like there's an extra level of intensity. If you can get offense in that as well, awesome.
And
Which is what we got. I mean, it was 30 something to 20 something, so it was
Sure.
still a decent scoring game. It wasn't like it was a 9-6 Alabama LSU win. But
yeah, I don't know.
so yeah, this was fun to watch. It was fun every time you
Yeah.
flipped over to it. Somebody was throwing a touchdown or
Yeah.
running a touchdown. But also, that gets old after a while to me.
Yeah, I suppose.
And it's like, all right, I need a pick, I need a fumble, I need something. That's part of the game.
There was none of that. I was shocked to know that there was no turnovers.
No turnovers.
I didn't see the whole game.
In a 100-point game, no turnovers.
Yeah, no turnovers and 1 punt.
Pretty impressive.
So nobody you can't say that neither offense didn't perform. Their offenses were performing fantastically. Their defenses were terrible. And I will tell you this, Arkansas, even though they're 3 and whatever, that looks like one of the most improved football teams I've seen in a year over year.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable because we watched them play last year a couple of different times, and they were not good. They were just not good. But this year they've been in almost every game. They're competing, and it's a different atmosphere in Arkansas, in Fayetteville. So anyway, long story short, I thought it was a better game, but what do I know? I don't know anything. So my opinion doesn't really matter other than on this show because I control the show. So that being said, we got a trivia question. Final, the trivia question. So trivia question once again brought to you by Stave & Stone Winery in Hood River. The trivia question, if you don't remember the question, I will repeat it for you because it's super, super good trivia question. The last 2 non-quarterbacks to win the Heisman Trophy were Derrick Henry in 2015 and Mark Ingram Jr. in 2009. Both played at Alabama. Who was the last player to win the Heisman Trophy that wasn't a quarterback and didn't play at Alabama? And your answer is?
Reggie Bush.
You're wrong. So, and I'll tell you
after that?
And I'll tell you why you're wrong.
Somebody went after. Or wait, are you going to tell me that it's because they stripped his Heisman?
Yes, that is exactly the reason why.
That's not a real answer.
That is, if you look at the official Heisman Trophy list of who won, he's not on there.
Oh no, he's on there, just with an asterisk.
Yeah, I don't think he's on there. He should be on there, but he's not on there. Yeah, no. So the official answer, because of that, is. Do you have a second guess?
What year was it?
1999.
I don't know.
Okay.
No. Oh wait, 99.
Yeah.
Woodson?
No. So it was Ron Dane of Wisconsin.
I thought he went to. Who's the Ohio State guy who was a running back who was trying to win the? Doesn't matter. Back in the early thousands.
Maurice Claret.
That's who I was thinking of.
Yeah, no. So it was Ron Dane of Wisconsin. 1999, he had 337 carries for 2,034 yards, 20 touchdowns on the ground. By the way, he also had 1 catch for 9 yards. So kind of a one-trick pony. But he did break 2,000 yards twice in his career at Wisconsin. Yeah, the freshman and as a senior.
Well,
So
it'll be Reggie Bush, in my opinion.
Reggie Bush, yes, won the Heisman, right? The voters voted on it. He won the Heisman. Did he take illegal benefits or whatever? Sure. But it didn't mean that he didn't perform on the field and do what he did. You know what I mean? Anytime those teams get sanctions and they have to forfeit wins or all that stuff, doesn't mean they didn't win. They still won those games, right? Now, if you got there illegally, if you acquired Reggie Bush illegally, that's one thing, I suppose. But he still performed on the field and they still beat you. So you should learn to pay your athletes better and get better players. I don't know what the answer is. Right?
That sounds about right.
Because that's what we're at. We're at paying players now. So anyway, a little special announcement. The Best Lamm debate's going to be back this Wednesday at 7 p.m. And we're going to give it another shot on Facebook Live. We had some technical difficulties last time, but we're going to try it again. This week, we're going to debate the best sports cities in America. That's the Best Lamm debate. One topic, two sides, no rules. Wednesday, 7 p.m. Facebook Live. Join us for that. It's going to be exciting. We picked our cities, and we're ready. I think mine's better than yours. Just FYI.
I don't think so.
Okay, we'll argue that later. Sunday, December 20th. Don't miss our NBA preview show on the Best Lamm Sports Show. As always, the Best Lamm Sports Show is on YouTube Live, and the Best Lamm Debate is going to be on Facebook Live, so don't get them confused. But Sunday, December 20th, we're going to do an NBA preview show. That's the week before the playoffs, before the NBA starts. Or the weekend, I guess I should say, before the NBA starts. Right. We'll tell you why the Trailblazers won't win the championship this year. Which I don't think is a surprise to anyone. But we're going to tell you who might. And which players who have moved, changed teams, are going to make the biggest impact. So stick with us for that. Join us for that on the 20th. But that's all we have basically for today. So again, we're live streaming on YouTube every weekend. We're on Twitter at Lamm Sports, on Facebook under the Best Lamm Sports Show. Email us, lammsports@gmail.com. Check out our website, that is lammsports.com. Any final words, Parker?
Wash your hands.
God, can we stop saying that? When is that ever going to be a thing?
It should never have been not a thing.
Well, I know, but
always have been forever.
But we shouldn't. Just more but we shouldn't have to remind people to wash their hands. That should just be something you do automatically.
Fair,
right?
But
I know people. All right. So anyway, I want to thank our sponsors: The Range in Yakima, Boss Kitty Yarns, Stone Wine Estates in Hood River. This has been a Brain Rock production, a division of Lonely Tree Media LLC.